Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity Podcast, episode 199. We are so close to episode 200 now, and luckily we are joined by a fantastic returning guest to be our last guest in the 100s before we cross over into the 200s. So we're joined by a fantastic returning guest who I will introduce you to in a minute. But first of all, we're just going to check in with Mr. Peter Lant and see how he's doing. How are you doing, Pete? You okay?
Yep.
Yeah,
all good.
Perfect.
It's been a funny old week because it was a bank holiday on Monday, wasn't it? And then I don't know, I felt like it's just been a weird week, and then all of a sudden I've had a really busy day today. Like, you know when you haven't got stuff to do and you feel like you should be doing loads of stuff. And then you start, like, especially when you're like working for yourself and trying to build things and all of that, and you feel a bit, I should be doing more, which obviously isn't true. That's what I felt like all week. And then today I'm like, I should be doing less. I'm doing too much.
No, that's good. I've had a very, very busy week because Nikki, who works with me, is off work this week. So I've been doing lots of extra cover and lots of, working every day pretty much. So yeah, I'm in a very, very busy week, and I'm very much looking forward to going to Cardiff next weekend and meeting you there for UK's Strongest Man, and hopefully catching up with James Brees there as well. And, we'll have a good weekend in Cardiff. So I'm looking forward to a couple of lay-ins, I think. I'm not going to set
It'd
the
be
alarm.
great as well, actually, because you've been saying you've been in touch with Lucy Underdown about getting the podcast, but you can just shout at her when she's doing her deadlifts. Go, do you want to come on the podcast? Sure, it'll go down very well.
Yes, no, it's going to be great. But we are joined today for episode 199 by Alison Young. How are you doing, Ali? Are you okay?
I'm good, thank you. I think thank you for the honour of, because I was the first person on this year. Because the last time I was on was the New Year edition, and I'm the person to close out the hundreds.
Excellent. Yeah, well, I forgot about that. I was just going to say before we go into it that if you haven't listened to the first episode that Ali was on with us, that was episode 175. And it was called Be Prepared. So that was episode 175. So we're not going to go right back over, as I always say when we have returning guests, I'm not going to kind of retread old ground and go over kind of Ali's backstory and everything. We're going to kind of pretty much talk about things that are kind of up to date and current with her and what she's doing. But if you didn't listen to episode 175, then I'd really recommend you go back. And I was just thinking that was 24 episodes ago. So that's about sort of 6 months ago. So yeah, that's about right, actually. So start of the year, about 6 months ago. So yeah, I mean, Ali, since we spoke on the podcast last time, I've obviously seen you again, and you have you've won the Tactical Strength Challenge again for the second time in a row with all. I think we'll talk about it, but I think it was it all new PRs across all? Well, it was equaling a PR on the deadlift, I think, and then new PRs on the snatches and pull-ups, wasn't it? Is that right?
Yeah, that's it. So the deadlift is now back at 160, which is my competition best. And yeah, snatches were 111 and 13 pull-ups.
Yeah, so it's fantastic. So 100, just for people listening, 111 kettlebell snatches in 5 minutes using the 20 kilo kettlebell. Yeah, so
yes,
absolutely incredible, brilliant. So
that was 20. Wow,
that was a 20.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a 20 kilo one. Yeah. And they were textbook snatches because they have to be. We video them and submit them, don't we? Off to sort of, well, it was Strongfirst, but off to sort of Tactical Strength Challenge now. And the pull-ups were absolutely. If you go onto YouTube, you can type in Ali's name and like TSC or something, and it will come up because I've had to put them onto YouTube. But yeah, the deadlift obviously perfect. The snatches textbook. and the pull-ups absolutely textbook as well, 13 of them. So yeah, incredible. So what's been going on with you then, Ali? We spoke, like you say, start of the year. We kind of kicked off 2024 with you. It's now kind of if you're listening on the day of release, which I know many of you do, it's the 21st of June. So it's kind of pretty much bang in the middle of the year, 6 months into the year. So yeah, what's changed? What's going on with you since we last spoke?
So yeah, I'm working as my story from the previous episode. I used to work in tech, in IT for 20 years, and then made the big jump into professional fitness. So right now I'm a PT. I have clients, and I've been a group fitness instructor for 2 months now, which has been actually there's some interesting parallels. There's some interesting parallels between being a tech team lead and being a group fitness instructor in terms of some practicalities. So in tech, we call team leads cat herders. In that, people working in
Yep.
tech are brilliant, smart, pig-headed people. Getting them to do anything is like herding cats.
Mm.
You just provide the food and the positive motivation, and you just hope they go where you want them to go. And I've actually, it's interesting because when last time I came on, we were talking a lot about kind of the theory of strength training and about, I remember we talked about, that my question, which I'm still looking for good answers for, around if you want to push a sled of a certain weight, a certain distance, certain speed, do you get stronger or faster? And some of those theories still map over to group fitness, but a lot of it is just stopping the chaos from being too much chaotic. And yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed the one thing I missed about my previous job was working with people. Tech, the way modern software development works is it's very much a team game. You've got lots of different skills, lots of people working together towards a common goal. And it's interesting. You wouldn't think a circuit. So I mostly teach circuit classes at the moment. And it's interesting seeing how many people think of a circuit class as theirs. It's something they belong to. It's a club, it's a group. But the reality is, especially for so where I work at the moment is Gymbox. And so Gymbox is, it's a boutique gym, kinda. It's really heading towards being a large gym. So what I'm talking about is not the kind of classes that have, say, 4 people in, everyone knows each other, a small group training. This is large group training. It's 18 people in a class sometimes. And yet, you still have people who definitely have that sense of belonging, of connection to the class. It's their class. And it's been interesting observing that and observing that kind of seeing what people get out of a class other than just fitness. And seeing as much my job being obviously trying to sneak fitness in and trying to get especially strength training in. Getting strength training into a circuit class is interesting. Once again, it's about good design. It's about understanding systems. It's about finding more than 5 ways of doing squats. So I don't bore them each week. It's going to be, we're going to have squats. We're definitely going to have squats on one of the stations. So far, we have had. I've done barbell squats. I've done dumbbell front and back squats. I've done kettlebell goblet squats. I've done D-ball squats, sandbag squats. And I don't think anyone's yet gone, oh, that's really boring. We always do squats.
I think the thing is, I mean, I was going to ask a question in terms of this is really lovely to, because I know we do obviously have, most of the listeners are probably not in the fitness industry as trainers or coaches or whatever. Most are end user, enthusiasts or people interested in improving their health, fitness, their strength and longevity, whatever. But some are, and some will be very experienced and some will be newer to the industry. And this is what's really interesting, because you are very experienced from a training perspective yourself and through doing your training, and you've done like you've done SFG1. Did you
SFG1, SFL. Yes.
SFL? Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, like we say, you've won the Tactical Strength Challenge a couple of times. You've done high rocks. You've done various other things. So from your own training perspective and point of view, you're very experienced, but you're new to coaching people. And the gym that you're working at currently, that's the gym that you have been a member at for a long time, isn't it? Is that correct?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct. So
So
it's
how
actually,
do you
yeah.
find sort of, you know, almost like the Wizard of Oz, you know, going behind the curtain, you know, and seeing it from the other side?
Seeing that it's all fake.
Yeah. Are you now able to, you know, to separate the kind of, yeah, like you say, the kind of the member side, and now you see it from the other side as well? I mean, how are you experiencing that? Are you still training at the gym? I mean, does the gym still have the same sort of place in your heart for your own training? I mean, yeah, talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Although it's interesting, I was talking to a friend of mine last week. It's like I'm ticking off bingo, ticking off boxes on a bingo card of experiences that new personal trainers and new fitness instructors go through. And I've had the week where I had all the fitness and no fitness. In that I had a week I had lots of classes to teach and cover, and we had, so the gym, it's quite good because even though we're all freelancers, they're providing training and doing workshops to try and basically make us better instructors. And all the class concepts have training for it. So I had one of those weeks where as we were saying, I think before we recorded this, my week was really full, and it felt like a lot of fitness happened, just not for me personally, but a lot of fitness definitely happened. So I'm adjusting back to, because I'm until relatively recently, as mentioned in the previous episode, I wasn't working full time. I was very lucky to be able to quit my job, study full time, and be in the gym full time. And if you have, unfortunately, I did become one of those people who the on paper hour session would take 2 hours.
Yeah.
So I'd faff about.
Yeah.
So I've got to learn to rein that back in again. But that's no bad thing.
And one of the things, sorry, go on, Pete.
I was going to ask the question because I transitioned from a job to well, it is a job, but training. And what I found the most difficult was the going from weekday, weekend, leaving the house in the morning, getting it back in the evening during the weekdays, and then weekends off, to time just being like, well, you're working when you're working, which could be any day really. And it was really weird because everyone else does weekday, weekend. Everyone else around me was. And I couldn't get used. I say I couldn't get used to it. It took me a long time to get used to it, because I'd basically been at school, been at university, and then straight into a job. So I was like, what was I, like 37 or something, and I'd been conditioned to weekday, weekend. So like, but you might not have had to experience that because you said you'd quit your job and you were doing studying. So maybe it wasn't that much of a transition.
Yeah, so it was a bit of a transition almost back into working, but then I haven't had to mourn the loss of my weekends. Although I have been all the people I know already in the industry have been in here years, decades, have said, for God's sake, have a day off. Have one day off, please. Have a day off. You will burn out otherwise. So I'm very mindful that I need to have some version of a weekend and some version of a week and some version of structure.
It's funny you should say that, because I do that on a Wednesday, and I know James does it on a Tuesday. And you think, like, bloody hell, why are you having a Wednesday off, but you've got your weekend? It's like, yeah, but on a weekend, there's I update programs and stuff on a Sunday. I do things for the walking group that I'm doing. I go out for a walk with the walking group on a Saturday, which is lovely, but it's still work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's still a responsibility. So therefore, chucking a day into the week that is just for you is huge. So that's good advice to whoever told you that.
Yeah, several very sensible people.
So is your gym, Ali, is it, because you're kind of, I'm terrible with London geography, but is it in the city of London, or it's not in the...
We've got 9 branches. There's supposed to be a 10th one opening soon up in Finsbury Park. So this is what I mean about it's in effect, it's a chain gym.
But
So
I mean, is it open at weekends? Is what I'm kind of thinking.
yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
I know some of the gyms that are right in the city, they only open Monday to Friday because they're dead at the weekends because it's just people training in the week who work in offices and stuff. But you're open at the weekends as well, yeah?
Oh boy. One of the branches I teach at, Elephant is like it's like a nightclub club at the weekends. It is that popular.
Okay.
I mean, again, it's brilliant. It's great that people have got, people are there, people are training hard. But yeah, we're open from something like 6 a.m. My first class is 6:45 a.m.
Yeah.
and they're open 10 o'clock at night, although we don't do classes that late.
Yeah. Oh, but that's London, isn't it? It's kind of a major city.
Mm,
So you've got people training at all hours, shift workers, different people. Oh, that's fantastic. So,
yeah.
and do you also, because I know when we spoke when you came down for the tactical strength challenge, do you teach a regular kettlebell class yet, or have you covered some kettlebell classes or something? What's going on? Are you using your kind of skills and your Strongfirst kind of knowledge and experience for classes in that perspective yet, or with personal training, or what you're doing with kettlebells at the moment?
Yeah, so I've not got a permanent class yet, although give it time. Um, in fact, I mentioned him on the previous episode. Our head of strength, our master programmer at Gymbox is Firaz Iskandanari, who is SFG1, SFG2 certified. And he wrote, like, Gymbox has a certain vibe. It's a bit irreverent. It's a bit silly. It's a bit, it's for people who go out clubbing at the weekends and then hit the club at the week. And so our kettlebell class is called Swingers Club.
Yeah.
and our swingers, but our Swingers Club class is taught to hardstyle kettlebell standards for the masses. And so we always go through the 8 points of the swing technique. When we go through cleans, we teach them properly, go into the front back position. And it's interesting because it's a little bit, this is the thing I like about group fitness, which you've kind of got to fight your corner every day. Not in terms of like fighting people in the gym, although sometimes you have to fight people for the two working ski ergs, but in terms of you've got to persuade someone every single day that turning up to your class is the best thing they should be doing in their time right now. To being a personal trainer, you've normally got, like, say, 8 to 12 weeks where someone's paid some money. They're probably not going to cancel. You're going to have that conversation, but it'll be in a few months' time. Whereas being a gym instructor, which is something I like about it, it's kind of you have to make it good every time, because otherwise people are like, especially my Monday morning 6:45 a.m. How many people get to Sunday evening and go, yeah, I'll have a lie-in instead? So, but
it's a two-way street, that, isn't it? Because it's like it's your responsibility to make it good, as in make people want to come back to it, and then it's their responsibility to show up. Do people have to book in for it?
Yes, but you can cancel up to an hour before, and it's a flat rate. So I'm really fighting like a lot of factors to get people to turn up.
Because I find that I do it for the walking group, and I do it for the guys who are trained every Sunday. The guys who are trained have to book in for the week. The 2 or 3 sessions they're going to do that week, and it usually what that usually does is they've committed to it then.
Yeah,
and they say, I've told you I'm coming, so therefore I now have to show up, don't I? And I'm like, yep. It's really, like, psychologically, that's brilliant. It really works.
Yeah.
What's quite interesting, Ali, from what you said, is similar to, you obviously speak to lots of people now. As soon as, I speak to people all day, every day at the gym. You speak to people whenever you're at the gym. And Pete, you speak to all your guys all the time. How many times have you heard people say they go to a restaurant and they've been going to this restaurant for maybe a long time, and they go and have a bad experience at the restaurant where the meal's not very good, or the service isn't very good, or something goes wrong, and they just kind of decide not to go back to that restaurant again? I'm just saying, this is more for the business owners, I suppose, who might be listening. But you can be going to the restaurant fairly regularly, and you have a bad meal, a bad experience, one of the staff's rude to you, whatever it is, And then because people say to me, oh, I won't go back there because there's so much other competition out there. And in the same way, I suppose, for an exercise class and as a fitness professional, you're kind of, you're on show, aren't you? You are. It's like I always remember reading a book about like Disney World, and they said that when all the people, they get dressed and stuff, and they go out into the park, and just before the door they walk through to go onto the park, it says kind of smile, you're on stage, you know, and you have to, no matter what's going on with your, it sounds cheesy, but no matter what's
Yeah.
going on in your life, no matter what's going on with your own stuff, you're there to do a job and to be happy and to be motivating and to provide a service, aren't you? So I suppose that's something else that you're you know, you're kind of learning as well, you know, that it's very it's kind of I mean, you're passionate anyway about fitness, which is
Mm.
obviously comes across, but it's, you really do have to try and, especially fitness, because it's something that so many people, like you say, on a Sunday night, they might think, oh, do I really want to go there? You know, there's got to be something that's
Yeah.
dragging them there, isn't there? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's interesting again, back in tech, it's kind of, in tech, we have this phrase, servant leadership. So, or the way I described my job occasionally was, I go to meetings so you don't have to.
Yeah.
In tech,
Yeah.
being a manager isn't necessarily a prestigious position. It's, you deal with all the shit. You deal with all the politics, bureaucracy. You have to organize meetings. You have to organize training days. You have to like organize the project management side of things. You have to make sure the team gets everything they need. And sometimes what they need is motivation, or I don't know, not external motivation necessarily. It's not kind of, oh, if you do this, I'll buy you pizza, or if you do this, I won't fire you. But it's more like, if you do this, you're contributing towards this amazing project, which is either going to help people or bring the business forward, or it's just really exciting to work on. Here's an idea of what your motivation can be, and kind of tying that into more intrinsic values they might have around learning hard stuff, or getting their work in front of people, or depending on the company, what the company values might kind of be something they really believe in. And so it's interesting, and we talk about fitness around, yeah, some people just want to turn up and get sweaty and vibe out for a bit. And that's actually completely valid too, because some people have really stressful jobs that they want to get away from for 45 minutes and listen to some crazy person at the front, getting them to do burpees and getting them to lift a weight and having a bop to the playlist, which I do a lot. And that's their value, or what they get out of that is that feeling of escapism. And that's a good use of a class.
That's what
They also
Mark,
yeah.
sorry, I was going to say that's what Mark Rifkin was talking about that last week. There's a difference between training and just exercising. You know, and he trains and he has his whole life, and you know, I think you do and I do and what have you. And it's like, but I've done the exercising thing because that's how I got into it. And then it's like, well, actually, it gets it. But it's just, what's great about that is some people want to do that because it's kind of escapism, which is fantastic because at least they're doing it. And then after a while, I was like, where does this now go? What's next? Because I've done it for ages and I was just like, I'm bored of this now. What do I do next? And actually, I was bored of that, which is meant to be the exciting stuff. And now my training's super boring and I do it all the time.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, actually, I say, oh, just do burpees. Actually, really rare for me to put burpees in the circuit, because
you want people to come back.
Well, it's more just like, what's the point? What are we? Because I'm trying to sneak. I actually am trying to sneak training in. Don't tell my class. But you know, good example. A couple of weeks ago, I had a circuit that I wanted to put people to work on speed and power, and so the training variables I manipulated in a six station circuit class, I manipulated the work rest ratios. And so we had 3 rounds of 30 seconds on, 20 seconds off, 2 rounds, 20 seconds on, 25 seconds off, 1 round, 10 seconds work, 30 seconds rest. And at that point, if you're on the assault bike, you will sprint for 10 seconds. That one we did, because I like borrowing stuff from other areas. So I borrow a lot, I borrow from High Rocks, I borrow from CrossFit. I've had them doing animal flow stuff and some calisthenics for core. And so we're doing, the first round was burpee broad jumps. And the second round was down up broad jumps. So a bit more jumping. And then the third round, that 10 seconds was 10 seconds of plyometric jumps. Just go. We'll work on that power. And if you'd interviewed everyone after and said, did you understand the theme of the class this week? What do you think you worked on? What do you think you progressed? They'd be like, a lot of jumping bit, that was fun. One person might look at the structure and go, we're working on power? But all of them worked on it. They just didn't have to think about it. So they got the training benefits of that, or at least, approximation of it, but without having to be taught and explained at and sort of told you're doing this. Let's go on with it.
What's your kind of demographic that you're working with? Just from the workout you said, I mean, I imagine in London, in gym box, like you said, it's kind of this terrible word to use, trendy, whatever, I mean, I'm very middle-aged, a bit trendy, like, what was that? Yeah, young, trendy, but is it kind of like mainly people in their, is it 20s and 30s mainly?
30s and 40s. So again, harking back to we're talking about in the previous episodes on where both I and Peter in our 20s, clubbing was our cardio. It's the demographic of people who used to go clubbing a lot and want the loud music, want the lighting, want the feel of a club and the kind of slight coolness factor, and doing unusual classes and doing unusual things and getting to try lots of different things. And then the novelty. I think a lot of the classes are based around a feeling of novelty. I'm in my classes, I'm trying to not use the same exercise twice in a row. I'm trying to give people lots of what feels like randomness. Except because I'm looking at movement patterns each week, I'm making sure there's always a squat, there's always a hinge, there's always a push, there's always a pull. I'm trying to find rotational work to put in. I'm trying to put carries in. And a lot of people who have, as I do, my programming has not changed for months. I tweak it here and there. It's boring as hell. It's hinge and push and squat and pull and carry. So you can be boring and do all the principles, but just with an interesting veneer.
I love that, because that's where people will say, you want to come to Ali's classes, they're great. They're so variable and like there's lots of variety in that. It's like, well, and you're in your head like going, it's not really. It's all the same stuff, just done in a slightly different way. Like you were saying, like goblet squats with a kettlebell or a sandbag or whatever. It's just changing the stimulus, isn't it? But the actual movement is what we're after. Which is interesting as well, because people think lots of variation. It's like there's only a certain amount of movements anyway that you can actually do. So I
think that's and as well, I know from my experience of doing things, I've taught kettlebell classes for years, and as you know, there's literally like half a dozen movements pretty much that you do. Like you said, it's a squat, it's some variation of a swing, it's maybe some cleans, maybe a press, but it could be a single press, a double press, an alternate press, a seesaw press, a snatch, a single or a double. There's very actually little variation in there, but it's just the way that you tweak, like you say, certain variables, certain timings, rest times. You can do I go, you go. You can do every minute on the minute. You can do, you can do ladders. Whatever. I mean, I think that's what's really good about once you've got the understanding of the fundamentals and the principles, that you've got so much variety there, but it's not really that much variety. But for people who do a class, it is, and as trainers, we kind of think, oh, it's got to be fresh and interesting all the time, or people will get bored. But it's because we're kind of living it all day, every day. For someone who comes to the gym 2 or 3 times a week, that hour or 45 minutes, it's escapism to them, isn't it? It's like they
Mm.
don't really,
Yeah.
it's not the same. I think yeah, it's interesting. It sounds like you've really kind of taken to it straight away. And I know from your own training, obviously, you have the experience and the knowledge, but it sounds like you're doing a great job, early on with structuring these classes and getting this kind of following. You're finding you're getting lots and lots of return kind of members coming to the classes. You're building a bit of a following and things.
Yes, definitely getting repeat customers, which is actually really nice. There's a couple of people I'm seeing progress really well, actually. And I yeah, I'd love to say, oh, it's one class a week. Clearly, but I know they're doing several classes. But yeah, it's nice to see people make progress, and it's nice to see people, because the way I set the class out is I set up a circuit, put weights out, and it's interesting seeing people kind of almost working their way up to heavier weights week on week. So that's really good. Yeah, definitely getting regulars, which is nice.
And
Do
are you
you,
doing any? Sorry, go on, Pete.
I was going to say, because James talks about this, do you tell people what weights to use, or do you get them to select their own? Because there's an interesting psychological thing behind that, because some people can come in and be quite like timid and wary, and they'll go for the lighter ones. And then a few weeks later, they're like, you know what, I'm going to try this one, because they build their confidence naturally through showing up and through doing it and possibly being told what to do. But then when you give them their own agency on it, they kind of go, they go, oh no, I think I can do more actually. Whereas sometimes in the beginning, they're like, I can't do that because it's too heavy, when it's not. But yeah, do you play about with that, or do you do it in a?
I definitely set out a number of, so a good example is my regular class, because it's 6 stations, 18 people, that's 3 people for a station, but I don't put 3 weights out. I'll put normally, well, especially things like kettlebells, I'll normally put sort of pairs, so everyone's got an option of a slightly lighter one or slightly heavier one. And then the nice thing about the way the studio is laid out, and this is one of the reasons I kind of we do a couple of circuits and then have a break to then bit of a rest, get some water, but also if you found that really easy, go get the 24. Or if you're dying, I'll get you the 8. And so people, and actually what I am seeing, which is nice, is people will do a couple of rounds, and because they come back, they have enough time to come back to the station and say, actually, that was really easy. Shall I try that? And it's, yeah, I do encourage people to kind of go up a weight. But I think that is, yeah, again, that's the structure. If you give people the structure that has repetition in, and they know what's coming, and and they've had almost that warm up. I mean, we do a warm up. We do sort of a stretching and pulse raiser at the start. But the reality is the first round's the warm up, because that's the first time everyone works out what the movements are. And it is interesting seeing some people will be sort of, yep, perfectly happy with this weight, sticking on that. But some people will move up and up as they go. And yeah, I think people do want a challenge. People do want to be challenged in that way sometimes. In terms of getting strong, it's not going to be ideal, because we're doing, it's not quite, it's not the way I'd write a strength program for somebody, put it that way. It's suboptimal for that, but it's still good. It's still a good way of getting 20 to 30 seconds. I mean, if you think about it in terms of reps, how many good strength reps can you do in 30 seconds? So I'd say 5 or 6.
Yeah, I was going to say 5. Yeah.
So, and if you're going through the cycle every 5 minutes or so, and if you go through 3 times, that's actually pretty good for strength building. That's the parameters I tend to use when I'm working on my big lifts. So my programming, I do 5 rounds rather than 3. But if you look at my own strength programming as a slightly bizarre circuit class, I'm doing more or less that. I'm doing 5 reps every 5 minutes on the main lifts, interspersed with normally a secondary strength exercise, and then maybe some mobility, because my ankles are still terrible.
It's funny, it's funny you say all this, because mine at the minute is just looking at the bells and going, oh, fucking hell, I've got to do another set, because mine's got quite heavy at the minute. And it's like, usually it's like, it sounds like exactly what you just said, just like you know, oh yeah, I've got to pick that up and do it a few times, and then I'll do this in between, and then go and do it again. At the minute, I'm like, right, what can I do now so I don't have to pick that up?
The internet's always there.
This is
It's always
true.
a distraction.
So, Ali, can I ask you at the moment, are you doing any? Because there's a couple of things I want to kind of cover in the time we've got left. One is if you're doing any, because you mentioned obviously this is a kind of a circuit format class that you're doing. Are you also doing any one-to-one training at the moment with anyone?
Yes, I am.
Yeah,
So that's
and
that's
how's that going?
yeah, really good. And again, it's something I've really enjoyed adapting to other people. Just again, similar to setting up the classes, I'm realizing how much I know. And it's not so much the strength exercises because a deadlift's a deadlift, but so I've got one person who's got problems with her knees, so she can't bend her knees that much, but working out hip flexor stretches, so type hip flexor tailbone knees, which actually I've got as well, but lots of people have got tight hip flexors, funny enough. But finding stretches and finding things she can do that aren't going to aggravate her knees, but stretching hip flexors. And again, it's interesting, a lot of bits and pieces of Strongfirst, like a get up. You can turn a get up into mobility exercise just by picking one station and working through it back and forth. There's a lot of, it's actually, we were talking about this the other day. One of the things I'm going to launch at some point is the kettlebells 4. So it's going to be something I'm going to offer. I'm saying this, so I'll have to do it. we were talking earlier about the recording a podcast at a certain point, knowing it's going out. It's going, well, you've said it, you're going to get it done. It's 4 one-to-one classes. Kettlebells for strength, kettlebells for power, kettlebells for mobility, kettlebells for you. And so something I'm going to start offering is people who want to get into kettlebells, because I still think it's one of the best tools to have. I know I nearly called it kettlebell amnesty, because one of the principles around this is how many people bought a kettlebell in lockdown and it's sitting in the corner somewhere and they haven't really got to grips with it. They don't quite know what they can do with it. And they don't necessarily want a PT full time. They can't necessarily afford a PT in terms of time or just in terms of money. I know what money's like at the moment, but have 4 weeks of going through how you can use kettlebell to get stronger, how you can use kettlebell to improve power, especially for things like for runners, how you can use kettlebell for mobility, and the last one will be the bonus round of tell me what you want to do, tell me what problems you want to solve, and I'll write you a bespoke, this is your session, this is what kettlebells can do for you in your world.
So would that be one session per thing, or is it a 4-week program for each of those things? Do you know what I mean? So is it a 4-week strength, or is strength 1 week and power's another week, or how is it going to work?
Yes. So it'd be one session a week.
Yeah.
Or if you want to do it faster, we can do it faster. But the idea would be one session a week, a micro workshop of them learning kettlebell movements, going over, starting. Could be people start from a fairly high training level, and therefore we don't need to go over things like deadlifts and hinges. But if someone's going from 0, genuinely needs to learn movement patterns, I think kettlebell is the best way of teaching deadlifts. I think kettlebell goblet squats are actually one of the most natural feeling squats. So we can start from wherever it is they need to start from, and then build it up into the point that they've got. In fact, it's kind of what I'm trying to do with my classes. I want people to go away. Like I chuck animal flow stuff in. I want a couple to go away and go, what was that called? The right leg, under switch. Look it up and go, oh my God, there's like 6 more of these to learn. and get excited about animal flow just because they did one station of class that they really liked and thought, oh, I like this. What's this called? Let's try more of this. So it's kind of giving people a toolkit that they can then go away and use at home in a corner of the gym when the gym's rammed with people and they can't get on the equipment they'd normally get on. I swear something's changed about hotel gyms in the last few years. Something has changed about hotel gyms. The last few times I've been away and it's been a hotel gym, either I am just so lucky or something's changed. Hotel gyms have got good. Has anyone else found this? Like, I've been turning up to hotel gyms in the last few years and they've had decent kettlebells. I found a hotel gym with a squat rack in Manchester. It was just like, what the heck's going on?
A few times I've been away, because I say we're not away in a hotel this year, but like when we go on our family holidays, one of the first things that Steph always sort of looks and books things, and she always finds one with a gym, and then I try and look, and they have photos on the gallery, you know, and I kind of, right, okay, let's have a look.
How bad's it going to be?
Yeah, is it good? But they're actually, the last few I've been to have been really good, because I do like an hour every morning when I'm away, because I think it's great. So I think
the last one I stayed in that I can remember, because we usually get Airbnbs when we go away because we can take the dog and all that sort of stuff. And I think the last one, it might have been in Vienna. I can't remember where it was. Anyway, it wasn't Vienna. It was somewhere else in Europe. But we walked past and I went to Sean, there's the gym, right? And it was this little room. It looked like a cupboard, right? And it had a treadmill and an elliptical trainer, and that was it. Just next to the window, so you could look out the window. And this room was about as wide as the two of them, you know. So it was big. That was it. I've got no experience of that, but anyway, there you go.
Well.
Yeah, you can find good hotel gyms, definitely, if you look for them. Ali, what is so your Instagram that you're using for your professional kind of training business now, and the work you're doing, is called In Love with Strong, isn't it? And
yes.
So In Love with Strong. So what, how did you come up with that, and what does that kind of mean? It is just, and if you search for it on Instagram, it is just at In Love with Strong, no spaces, no dashes, nothing.
Yeah.
So how did you come up with that?
Because every time in the last year or so, in the last few years, when people ask me, why am I making this change? Why am I transitioning to this career that's long hours, hard work, all sorts of negatives, all sorts of challenges? It was basically love. I love it. I love how being strong feels. I love that it makes me feel capable, more resilient, that it's just great. It is fun. And one of the things I want other people, and I want other people to experience that love of training, love of moving heavy things around, or moving yourself around in unconventional ways, or whatever it is. Because I've got a few friends recently, a friend of mine who has always struggled with fitness, struggled with their health. And they sent me a message the other day saying that there's a gym that opened up near to their house. And they said, I think I found it. It being the exercise modality they love. They'd found boxing. Okay. And it turns out something about boxing, something about the rhythmic and the hitting things, and something about it means they're now turning up to the gym regularly. They now they've bought kit. They want to turn up to the gym. They now get why people do that, because they found the thing they love. And I think to me, that's fundamental. And we talked about earlier about how, with group instructors being in classes, it's a lot about entertainment. I think, given how many different exercise modalities we have for strength training, there is no excuse to give people stuff they're not going to love. There's no kind of excuse for, well, you've got to do that because because it's the only option. If people find it boring, if they don't connect with it in some way. But we've got so many ways of moving around. Some people love Olympic lifting. I think Olympic lifting is actually, I like it. I'm just terrible at it. I know I have to work on it a lot. But I see people in my gym who are so dedicated to it. And it's because you seem to spend about 9 times out of 10 sitting on your ass, having the barbell having chewed you up and spat you out. And the 10th time it goes up, and it's the best feeling in the world.
Mm.
And so you chase that feeling.
Mm.
And so, yeah, in love with strong is how I want everyone to feel.
Mm. Oh, that's fantastic. That's absolutely brilliant. With one thing you did talk about when we were talking last time when I met you in person, which was really interesting, which I don't know if we've got time to go into in much detail, but you talked about, again, relating back to your previous career, and numbers and metrics and data. And you were saying about how the fitness industry as an industry, I suppose, doesn't really use data particularly well, or could use data a lot better. Do you just want to share some of your thoughts around that? Because I thought that was really, really interesting, from your background, and
Yes.
you're then looking at the new industry that you're in. Yeah.
Yeah. So in tech, you can put monitoring on everything. I mean, even in fitness, we've got things like heart rates and various bits and pieces of data that we can collect second by second. In tech, imagine that 1,000 times. So we can have uptime numbers, we can have page. Yeah. Every time you're on a website and the page is a bit slow, know that some tech somewhere probably has an alert going off saying your page is slow. There's thousands of metrics around page views, and then my part of the world around software delivery lifecycle, where there's metrics as Big Four called the Accelerate metrics, which are judging how well a team performs in terms of how quickly you can get software out, how frequently you get software out, how frequently there are problems, and how frequently you can resolve the problems. And I've gone from this world where I see, I can see reports generated at will of what's going on with any website I'm responsible for, to incredible detail. To in my current job, I get a report once a month saying for each studio I work in, what percentage the classes were full. That's it. And so I'm not getting any data about what percentage of my class are repeat customers. Am I seeing churn? I think this might be a problem because you have to have personal data attached, but I'd love to see people who do my class do these other classes. I'd love to see if there's patterns, because ideally you want this to be a pattern. You want to be someone doing a mix of stuff, a nice mix of stuff, a strength class, maybe a circuit class to get sweaty, maybe something around skill, something around mobility. Please do mobility classes, they're great. But like seeing whether there's patterns. And it's interesting, the fitness industry, I mean, obviously in a more community focused gym like yours, James, you kind of know your regulars and your kind of guests and your irregular people. You have a more personal touch. But in large gyms, I don't think there's any kind of metrics tracking, what's successful, what's not, what's working. If you make a change, if I make, say, I've been running a certain class format, if I change that and then suddenly see all my regulars disappear, you want to kind of be aware of that. Or if you're successful, you want to be aware of that. And it's interesting coming from a very data heavy industry, coming into fitness where we are on an individual level, we have a lot of data. And it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I track heart rates. I'm actually, I don't use things like Whoop bands, just on the practicality of, I know if my sleep's bad. I don't need to be told it. It's fine. I have a friend who started using Whoop And it's more that she wants to be able to test things, as in test, okay, I'm going to try doing this for a week and see if my score improves. So that's the other thing. It's kind of be able to experiment and then have the data to back up your experiments.
It's so interesting because I bet the thing is with any kind of industry, but the fitness industry, I bet if you go and speak to the gym box membership coordinators, they'll have data on the number of members they've got, the attrition every month,
How much they're paying,
the retention, how much they're paying,
Yeah.
when people's contracts are running out. So it's probably and the data's probably used more from a financial perspective rather than, but I think it's really interesting. I think it'd be good, if you could potentially, I mean, I know you're close with Faraz, but if you could maybe somehow have a chat with somebody out there, because there would probably be a correlate. There will definitely be a correlation, because I know we've had Dr. Paul Bedford on here before, who's the retention guru, and he talks all around the world to clubs about how to keep members for longer and customer satisfaction and how you set your clubs up and everything else. And there definitely will be if you can see a trend of someone's attendance diminishing over a period of months, there is definite data that Paul will have that will say, right, if it drops from this to this and this to this, then in 3 months they're going to go. You know what I mean? Or you can see this trend of declining use, and then it leads into them leaving. So in some ways, you probably the path to getting more data is going to need to be linked to the bottom line. Do you know what I mean? Because then they can see, well, what's the purpose? Because if it's just, well, I want to see all this data because it will help give members a better experience, they might not be too bothered about that. But if it's, I want to see all this data because it will keep members here for longer and they're going to stay and you're going to make more money, then they would probably be up for kind of using that data more. But it is fascinating. I remember when you spoke to me about it, I thought that was really, really interesting.
Yeah, if you could set something up, like even get the numbers off them, and say, look, I'll do this in my spare time or whatever, if you've got any spare time, and just do a spreadsheet or whatever you can do, and say, right, and show them a correlation between here's the happy customer and here's how long they stay. And here's how you can prove there's a correlation between the two. Or there's a drop off or whatever, then that goes to the bottom line anyway, doesn't it? So yeah.
No, it's fascinating.
It's funny because my brain went straight to where James's went there. It's like, I bet they've got all the data on how much everyone's paying, how long they stay for, when the contracts are up, when they need to send the email out to say, oh, by the way, we do remember who you are. Your contract's now, you renew it. Those sorts of things.
Yeah.
But there's probably a bunch of stuff that happens before people drop off. And it's kind of, can you see that? In the same way, in tech, it's not everything's fine and then suddenly the website crashes down. What you'll see in tech is, you'll see pages starting to slow. On the tech side of things, you'll see all sorts of metrics saying you're running out of, from using laptops and phones, like you're running out of memory, you're running out of disk space, some service is down and not working properly, and so there's probably a fitness equivalent of, as you say, patterns of dissatisfaction. But then can you also then find patterns of satisfaction? And again, one of the things I'm surprised we don't do is a genuine Amazon, like, people who like this class also like this other class. Because if you can get people doing, if you have someone doing 1 class a week, are they more likely to say the person who's doing 7 classes a week? That person doing 7, especially if your gym is and I love Gymbox for this. Gymbox has an entire department for aerial skills. We do trapeze classes. Not many other places in London do. So if I can get you hooked on trapeze, you're not going to leave because you want to come and do trapeze every week. So that's going to get you in the same way that, if you have an amazing kettlebell class, you want to do that amazing kettlebell class each week, you're hooked now. You're mine. I keep you. But that's getting people to go and we almost reassuring them, saying, this is what people who like this class also like. Give it a go.
And it's amazing how much that works on something like a shopping site or Amazon, where it says people who bought this also bought that, and you've never even thought about buying that, and then you think, oh, that would be
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So no, that's interesting. I'll tell you what, we're gonna have to start wrapping up, Ali. But I mean,
Mhm.
are you planning on tactical strength challenge in October?
Absolutely. And this time round, we're going to get more people because
Yes, and
whilst
I know.
it was nice to win. It was me and one other lass. Oh, she beat me on snatches, so I was very impressed by that because I know, yeah, my snatch. Yeah, I said this at the time. My tactic now for the snatch test portion is basically be an idiot for 3 minutes and then do damage control for 2. As in, just go absolutely ham for 3 minutes, and then just see what I do. Which is also, again, I should post about this. Do not do this if you're trying to actually pass the SFG1 or SFG2 snatch test. Going like an idiot for 3 minutes, you might get to like 90 out of 100, and then crash hobby. So don't do that. But yeah, my tactics, because I know I can get 100 or so. It's always like, well, can I get? How much more can I push myself?
Yeah, because I know that Alex is going to do it in Alex, who was on with us episode 197 2 weeks ago. She's going to be doing it in October again. So
Awesome.
that'll be
Lovely.
great. We'll really work on getting as many people as possible.
Yeah.
No, it'll be great. Yeah, so that'll be great. So we'll see you in person then, and I'll be really interested to catch up with you again. 6 months down the line, a year down the line, and just sort of have a chat again and see where you're at, because it's really lovely to actually talk to you kind of before your kind of this career change, and then at the start of this career change, and then where it goes, because I think it's because so many people think they're gonna do a level 3 PT course, and suddenly they're gonna be, I don't know, training celebrities or making hundreds of thousands of pounds a year, and they've kind of got this, they're sold this kind of image or this dream of what the industry's like. And it's going to be really good to actually talk to you, who is a highly experienced, intelligent, strong, capable woman coming into the industry, and then seeing the reality of it. But I think most people, I really, one thing I totally think about you is I really doubt there's many people, even who work probably within gym box and certainly general gyms around London, as passionate as you, who would actually be thinking about, wanting to know, oh, I wonder what all my clients are doing, what other classes they're doing, how can I give them the best experience, how can I make sure that everything kind of is aligned and matches up. So I think that your passion and your care and what you said, your love of strong, is what's gonna carry you forward. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Ali. It's been lovely catching up with you. Yeah, brilliant. Mr. Peter Land, any final thoughts as we wrap up?
No, it was just funny when you said about like the level 3 stuff and everything, because I remember doing that, and they're like, right, so the business side of it, here it is. If you charge this much, you work this many hours a day because you got this many clients, you make this much money. Anyway, next. And it was like,
it's always also get yourself a nice logo, get yourself a business card, get yourself a website.
Done. Sorted. It's that easy. And then it's like, yeah, you've got to try and make people pay for something that they don't want to do.
Dearie me. Ali, it's been so lovely. If people are, so I did mention it, but if people don't follow you at the moment, I know you're on your personal one on Instagram and stuff, but is In Love with Strong, where you're going to be kind of active and you're going to want people to head towards that, is it?
Yes, it is. And I can actually give people a specific action now. And so in the link in my bio, there is a option to, it's a calendary link, and it's an option to basically book a 30-minute chat with me. So if you're interested in personal training, or if you just want a sort of a chat about kettlebells or about strength training, or if you want to be signposted, say, I mean, I'm based in London, but obviously I know loads of people around the country. So if you're not based in London and want recommendations for, I don't know, Chelmsford or Portishead
or Bath.
or Bath, or, yeah, I'm sure I can find a network. And honestly, if people just want to have a chat about strength training and want sort of bit of motivation, I'm happy to have a chat.
I love that. I love that you're ready with your call to action. And I've just clicked on the link and I see how it works. That's absolutely brilliant. So, yeah. So just as a reminder, go to Instagram and it's at In Love with Strong, at In Love with Strong, and give Ali a follow. That would be brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ali. That's been lovely catching up with you. And I will see you again in person in October. And I'm loving those krauts, those sauerkrauts that you brought down for me.
Good.
I'm having the red cabbage and fennel. Oh, delicious.
Nice.
Lovely.
I've got some on the go up there with.
I saw Pete was making them, wasn't he?
Ginger and garlic. It was sauerkraut day on Tuesday. It was swap over day. So I take it all out the mason jars and like drain it all in that. Put it in the I've got big olive jars. Put it in those, and then cabbage in the new one. That's all up there now. It's actually, it's up there next to my Lego. And then the boy gets what's, when I chop the cabbage up, he gets there's not a cabbage stalk, is there? But the middle bit, which is really hard and all that. And he gets 4 of those. He loves it.
I'll tell you what, we need to start doing a cookery podcast, because a couple of episodes ago with Ollie Mel, we were talking about the recipes for bone broth, weren't we?
I've just made a load of that as well.
And now we're talking about sauerkraut. It's lovely, but it's great. But thank you everybody for listening. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're watching or listening on a platform that allows you to do so. Please do go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review, because we'd love to send you out some merch. We've recently sent out a couple of t-shirts and a hoodie for previous reviews. So go on there. If you leave a review, we'll read it out online. Next week, we will be back with episode 200. Okay, so next week we'll be back with episode 200. So we will see you then. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ali.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com, or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.